Brandon got his justice. Trina K knocked it out of the park. She's the GOAT. I was right. At least according to the one juror that I've seen speak out so far, I called it. I called it. So let's talk about it.
If you're new here, I'm Annette Lyon, USA Today best-selling author of the suspense novel Just One More and a whole bunch of other stuff. Also award-winning author, former editor, whole bunch of other things. Here we discuss true crime often, but not always, where it intersects with religion. And then we had chocolate on the side because you gotta have something sweet in the middle of all the bitter. I have opinions. I rant. That's what we do here. We respect all faith traditions and those with no faith traditions. That includes my faith as well. And a quick reminder to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and helps other people find this kind of content who would be interested in it. Ready? Let's go.
If you happen to have that misfortune of missing the actual verdict, most of us did, because somehow there was technical difficulties, so we saw silence. We saw the back of Lori's head, and it wasn't until Judge Boretsky said that he would poll the jury that we actually got to hear any sound. So here it is.
All right, the clerk will read and record the verdict.
In the Superior Court of the State of Arizona, in and for the County of Maricopa, State of Arizona versus Lori Daybell, CR 2022-001242-001. Verdict count 1. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action upon our oaths, do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, as to the crime of count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder occurring on or about October 2nd, 2019, as follows. Guilty. Signed, foreperson. Are these your true verdicts, so say you one and all?
Yes.
Yes.
She will be sentenced on July 25th, and that will be sentencing for both the conspiracy to kill Charles and the conspiracy to kill Brandon. Of course, Charles was successful, Brandon's was not, but it is the same charge. She's guilty on both. And she stipulated to the aggravating factors, again, just as she did with Charles. She's annoyed that they even have to have that as an element in Arizona law, but that idea is that once you've been found guilty, there's an aggravation phase where the jury can say, oh, well, yes, this was a particularly egregious, dangerous, whatever. There's all these aggravating factors. And I actually looked up a whole bunch more. Turns out that the judge can add some before sentencing, which can then make it into a more intense sentence. And I have some opinions about maybe which ones he'll be adding, especially in the case with Charles, but we shall see. Sentencing investigation, pre-sentencing report, depending on where you are, they call it different things. She did not participate in that in Idaho. She asked for it to be waived in Arizona, and the judge said, no, we are doing that. I doubt she'll participate again. She doesn't care, and she wants to get back to Idaho as soon as she can. If we believe her, the Arizona jail is just the worst place in the world. It's just horrible. And she just wants to get on with living in a better prison and for the rest of her life. So yay. We will definitely be watching the sentencing on July 25th. She wanted it to be much earlier, of course. It cracks me up that she was going off about how, oh, I want a speedy trial. And she spent a week trying to pretend she was sick to delay the trial and get Judge Boretsky kicked off the case. And that didn't work. And she's a piece of work, as we know. Okay, so here's the one little moment that I just had a little bit of joy watching, because it was watching Lori walk out of the courtroom. I wanted to go, bye. This is after they decided on the date for sentencing. She's just walking out. Okay, trying to keep my head up.
Look at that smug smile on her face. Is she flirting with the bailiff? Like, seriously? There she goes, out the door. Bye.
We had the cameras outside the courtroom trying to catch everything. This time the court was smart with the jury. Last time with Charles, see, the jury had no concept with either of these cases just how big the cases have been, that this is like international. As far as interest goes, they had no clue. And so last time they said, oh, do you want to talk to the media? They said no. They said, okay, you can go out those doors. And they walked right into the media, basically. And several of them kind of took off. A couple of them stayed and talked. Time around, they escorted them out separately, and so we didn't see the jury leave at all. And so far, we have had one jury talk to Lauren Matthias, a hidden true crime. Watched just a couple of clips from his interview with her. At this point, he does not want his name revealed, and his face is not on there either. He's just juror number 5. So we'll have just a couple of clips from that. But first, I wanted to show you what we saw at the mini press conference. It wasn't much. It was Kay, of course, who's Charles's sister and JJ's biological grandmother. Her little quick, small little statement that she gave for her brother Jerry, who I guess couldn't be there, and then Brandon's statement, or at least part of it. I don't know that I can watch the whole thing. I've watched it twice and I've cried both times, and we probably won't go through the whole thing. But for those who say, why do we bother? This is why.
We stand united. We're still family. We always will be.
Okay, for my brother Jerry, we got the bitch again. That's for you, Jerry.
2,078 days. I'm humbled. I can't even imagine how many hours have been spent by law enforcement and prosecutors tirelessly working to uncover the truth. The truth is that hatred, selfishness, and greed almost led to the end of my life. 12 strangers verified that Lori must be held accountable. I have heard the question asked, why hold this trial? She already has multiple life sentences. My response is simple. We owe it to those who are victimized and choose to follow the law to uphold justice on their behalf. So many victims never get this day. So I thank the judge and the jury who willingly put their lives on hold to complete this process.
I've seen cases where if there's a serial killer situation, which frankly that's what Lori is, where once they've caught the person and even put them on death row, like with Chad, then they'd stop investigating open cases. I believe it was Richard Ramirez, often known as the game show serial killer guy. Some of the victims, they're pretty sure it was him, but they stopped investigating. Okay, well, they just added it to his tally. Family didn't get answers. They don't know what really happened to their loved ones. And they kind of felt like their loved one was
Just a footnote. They deserve more than that.
Is this a huge expenditure as far as tax money and all that? Well, yeah, but justice matters. The fact that we don't want any sort of appellate issue to create a loophole where she could ever get out. So if something, God forbid, would happen that would overturn things in Idaho, then she's got cases here. We don't want her ever getting out for any reason.
I did not enjoy sitting and giving someone who tried to kill me the chance to question me, but I owed it to Charles, to Tylee, to JJ, and to Tammy to speak because I could. I don't know the statistics of how many people never get the chance because they were killed or because we can't find the people who committed the crime. But we as a society owe it to them to move forward with prosecuting those who commit violent crimes. I've chosen in my life to be and live as a man who believes in Jesus Christ and in God. So I view my life from this lens. I heard this in this trial about loving everyone. I support this cause. However, I do not believe that all the things that were said follow that. The Savior did say, "Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity." The beautiful part of this human experience is, as Isaiah said, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes. When we trust the Lord to do this with our lives, he can do wonders with us.
deep respect for Brandon. Some of what he testified to seems to imply that he's returned to his spiritual roots. In Idaho, when he testified, he was not. He had stepped away. That has provided him some healing. Then I am all for that. I'm grateful for his sake. That's awesome. Watch his whole thing. It's powerful. He quotes Viktor Frankl about that. When bad things happen, the real freedom is being able to choose how you respond to it. And if you're unfamiliar with Viktor Frankl, he was a psychologist, but he was also a victim of the Holocaust. He survived a concentration camp, and so he knows of which he speaks. Let's put it that way. So here are then a few clips from Hidden True Crimes interview with juror number 5. This is when I said I was worried after day 3. This right here validated that. I was like, see, I called it.
On a lot of things. Much of the first I'd say 3.5 days were all focused on Alex and what he had done. And it wasn't really anything confirming that she was a conspirator, other than her brother used her vehicle. It's like we really came down to the last day and a half, and that gave us the information that could actually hold to those charges.
Powerful stuff. After day 3, we had Alex in the bag, but we did not yet have Lori clearly connected to the conspiracy. She was beating a dead horse, so several weird dead horses, including the color of the Jeep. He agreed.
She just didn't she kept harping a lot on the color that the witnesses gave of the Jeep, and it was just ridiculous. And it was like there was so much more information beyond that. Her going over that over and over again was like, okay, you can get past that. And it made her feel like, she wasn't being truthful at all. Her opening statement, she actually did a lot of where she, didn't pertain to the evidence. It was all almost like she was giving testimony. That's why she got interrupted a lot. I mean, there was quite a few sidebars.
He describes her demeanor to hold it against her that she was representing herself. Okay, gutsy move, go for it. Let's see what happens. But then he describes her personality, and I was kind of impressed that he picked up on this. Although, granted, it's hard for us to know exactly what the jury saw because they basically saw her face way more than we ever did. We heard her voice and her snarkiness, but we didn't see her face, and he kind of describes that here.
But she definitely gave the impression that she loved the attention.
She's just so clueless when it comes to the cell phone technology, and you don't have to be that tech savvy to understand this. Nick Balance explained things to help her understand, to help the jury understand. And he even pointed out the call detail records, from Verizon or whichever company, are very similar to the old cell phone bills that those of us who are old enough to have had those would know what they look like. And she is. Okay, we were born the same year. We know the where it was outgoing call to this phone number, this many seconds, incoming call, this many text messages, but you should know this. You'd think, but not so much apparently. This is one that just completely cracked me up because again, I was harping on this one with day 5.
A big kicker for me was she tried to make oh well, you got these records from the cell phone from the towers, but they don't tell you exactly. And it was yeah, but then you have the Google Maps. So I don't think she grasped the understanding the difference between Google's information and then Verizon's tower information. I didn't know all. I knew that your phone could detect Wi-Fi. But
if your phone would have to connect to the Wi-Fi, no, he already said that. So he's pointing out those things that I pointed out in my last video too. He caught all of the same things I was thinking that would matter to the jury.
Obviously, Google, if you're signed into an account, it's going to track, hey, you got a hotspot, you got all these available places you connect to. So I knew, of course, your phone's going to know all that, So yeah, but I don't think she grasped the understanding that, like, well, it doesn't tell you exactly, but yes, but then you did use a tower that was way down south by the Walmart when your brother was buying the cell phone. So yeah, you may have not been, like, you were in Idaho Falls. That's not the same as Rexburg, by your apartment. It's a tower that's miles and miles away. And she tried to play like, well, you don't know exactly. You just know that it was off that tower. I'm like, yeah, but no.
Yeah, but no is kind of like that could be the title for this entire trial. It's like, yeah, but no. Lord, yeah, but no. There's the verdict. Guilty, as we expected. It came in so quickly, too. Less than 15 minutes, and then like maybe half an hour on the second day. First day, they probably only had time to pick a foreperson and maybe do a quick vote, and then they went home, take a break, come back the next day, filled out the paperwork, voted again, whatever. They were pretty convinced, but it came down to day 4 and 5. That's what it came down to. And I'm sure a lot of it was the closing arguments and Trina K connecting those dots after laying out all the technology, all the cell phone evidence, Hermosillo's testimony, the storage unit video. And my father actually asked earlier this week when he saw me watching some of the coverage, why I have been so interested in this case in particular. And granted, I've been interested in true crime as long as I can remember. Some of you've been following me a long time, you'll know this. I've been interested to the point that I read my first books on profiling in the mid-90s. When John Douglas was first publishing his very first books. So this is nothing new for me. I've been fascinated and, wanting to learn as much as I can about these things. Members of my faith who have twisted and distorted and turned evil, starting with little seedlings of what I believe in, and then they grew it into something really unrecognizable and disgusting and did evil with it in the name of God, which don't even. But Chad was part of my community. I didn't know him personally, but I have friends who, one of my friends, it was a longtime critique partner for several years with her. She thinks she was his first or possibly second author that he published with Spring Creek Books when he opened his own publishing company. I know several people who published with him. I have friends who were rejected by him and by Tammy when they worked at another publishing company that was local. So when Tammy suddenly passed away, we learned about it on Facebook, and some of our little writing pages were a buzz, of course, like, oh, how that's horrible. What happened? And it was a mystery. And then suddenly Chad got married, and then suddenly his wife's children are missing. And I remember just weeks after learning that Tammy was dead, and just a couple of other tiny details that came out, I thought, this is starting to sound like a Dateline episode. And I had friends who were like, oh, don't be judgmental. And I just had the spidey sense of like, I've watched and researched and read about way too much true crime. I'm like, there is something stinky here. And I don't know. I want to be wrong. But anyway, that's one of the reasons why this case has gripped me from the beginning, because it was personal. I didn't know Tammy myself, but Tammy and Chad were very close to my circle of my little community of LDS publishing. I haven't published with an LDS publisher since about, was it 2014, 15? Then it's been 10 years-ish. But I published for well over a decade, and I was very deeply involved in the community. And it hit home, and it was disturbing, and that's why I followed it, and that's one reason why it means so much. That and I want to clarify a lot of the crap and explain some of the context, like what does it even mean to have your temple recommend taken away? What is a ward? What's a stake president? Who the heck was Korihor? All these things that have come up, that what's a patriarchal blessing, things that I've explained in past videos that I think are irrelevant, because there are parts of the case that you just don't catch if you don't know the culture, the vocabulary, the way they would think and try to then spin things in their own little twisted propaganda. So hopefully I've clarified some of that over the course of the last year as I've been making these videos. You can go back and watch some of the other ones where I talk about some of the more specific Latter-day Saint things. But yeah, I'm glad that Lori finally she's had her justice meted upon her head. That Brandon got his justice. Charles got his. Tammy, JJ, Tylee, they all have their justice. I hope that Joe might be able to. Again, as I've said, I think the evidence might not be there anymore to be able to get a conviction, but I think she's responsible for his death. If nothing else, then the tasing that Alex did to him may have weakened his heart enough to have led to his death. Because I heard that that Joe was in the hospital for days after that. Hello. But we did learn, to me, the biggest surprise, the biggest cool aha of this trial was that an active and open investigation is still ongoing for Melanie Pulaski, formerly Melanie Boudreau. And I deeply hope, as I have said, the charges will be drawn up against Melanie, that she'll be put on trial, and that she'll be convicted, because I believe she had just as much to do with the attempted hit on Brandon's life as Lori did. Will charges ever be brought up against Chad? The Arizona prosecutors have said no, because they don't think there's enough evidence. But I don't think that they have ever dismissed any possibility, like with prejudice, meaning they would never do that. If enough evidence were to come forward, which perhaps it has over the years, perhaps as they're investigating Melanie, more will come out. If they find even more stuff against Chad, maybe he could be charged as well. I would be happy, though, if Melanie could be charged, because I am scared for those children. They were on the dark list and probably would have been taken out too. If Alex hadn't died, then they would have tried Brandon again, and then they would have taken out the kids, I think, Melanie's kids, because they'd already taken out 2 kids before. They wouldn't have stopped. Granted, without the cult leaders around, now with Chad and Lori behind bars, they don't have quite as direct access and power, but I do worry about those kids. Granted, the world's eyes are watching on some level. Melanie couldn't get away with it as easily, but I don't think she is a fit mother. Let's put it that way. I think Brandon deserves to have full custody, and she deserves to be behind bars for what she did. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you think with all of this. If you've been following the trials, I'm very interested to see everybody's take on it and what you think. Please be respectful in the comments about my faith and everybody else's. And if you don't have a faith, that's fine too. Please have respect for that. If you don't have a direct comment, leave some chocolate emojis or your comfort food of choice, because anything helps as far as helping the algorithm know who to push this kind of thing to, so that other people can find it. And until next time, go get yourself some chocolate, because I sure will.